will you do me a favor, Mom? Maybe just move it a little bit that way, since a little more. There you go. Thank you. All right. Welcome back. I guess it's not welcome for me. Um, I'm late, and we might not have anybody. Scott's here, so there we go. That's enough. I don't know if Terry first, LOL, and we're late. It's a heck of a time this year starting. Well, it's not going to be like last year, but it's been busy. So customer after customer after customer. We finally, shop mom just locked the door, turned off all the lights. It's okay. I've moved in. It's my chair. Okay. So, all right. I guess we're gonna. Bob Miller's here. No, maybe people didn't. Shop mom saying we're late and we lost people. They're not gonna. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I do have a subject. We're gonna be talking about bolts, but I'll wait till more people get here. Hi, shop mom. Shop mom's now here at her desk. It's officially started. Actually, Scott was here, so it officially started. I'm not going to open up my beer yet till my brother-in-law is here,
or your brother-in-law may have already gone to bed.
So he's in Germany, so he may have already gone to bed. So unless somebody encourages me, I may just drink water.
Drink water; it's good for you.
It is. So how are y'all doing? Hope everybody has
Terry's here.
Oh, Terry's here. Terry did not go to bed. Terry, I was not going to do this until we knew you were here. I was about to. Well, I'm sorry. The shop got really busy there at the end. We've been helping a nice couple on with their project, and it's just one thing after another, and it's time flies, and it's been crazy. But Terry, Pachanga Friday, we miss you. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going for it. Oh yes. But it's got to make a buck, yes, and that's probably about it, a buck. But it's not about making money. To tell us about it. Ask our banker. It's not about making money. Um,
Aloha, Wade.
so wait, we need to just travel to go visit all of our peeps. We would be everywhere. Terry says hi. Um, okay, we're going to be talking about bolts, and somebody had asked a question on one of my videos. Um, and it was a real good question, but it's kind of like a real long question to type it all in, especially if you're like me, and that just doesn't work. So I answered it kind of in general, and I told them to join us for our live stream, and we'll be talking about bolts. And I thought it was a great question because this a couple that we've been helping on his engine build, and they're building their engine, and it's their first build. And I just think it's awesome because they're both, tackling this. They're on it. They're listening. She's writing notes. I say something and she's already heard it, or they're just a good couple. It's real fun to help. So, but it's their first build. So I told them, don't have any, don't, if you get a problem, just call or stop by. Don't make a mistake because you didn't just know. You have somebody that you can ask. And that brought up the question first. That's why when they asked me about bolts online, they had already asked me. And here's the question, and here is what could be an issue that people are having. So they buy this project. It's a small block Chevy. It's an aluminum headed LT1, which is the way it comes from the factory. But the person before had bought ARP bolts. And we all know that ARP makes some of the finest bolts. Smokey Unick was a spokesperson for ARP bolts, and he wasn't a spokesperson for many things. But we know that they're one of the best quality bolts that you can buy. That it's a production bolt. So that's that. Kind of as we said, it's a good quality bolt that you can buy. And the question was that the factory had a different torque on their cylinder heads than what ARP recommends on their bolts. So who do they believe? Do they believe the factory manual, or do they believe the sheet of paper that came in with the ARP bolts? So without getting into Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you what the difference is and why there's a different torque setting. A bolt, and we discussed this before, a bolt is like a rubber band. So you have Chevy has 5 bolts around each combustion chamber, ton of bolts. Ford only has 4 on combustion chamber. All that don't matter. They're holding the cylinder head on the engine to put a loading force on the head gasket. So why does ARP want a higher torque than the factory wants? It's a rubber band. Okay, think about it. Just a bolt is a rubber band. If you were to get your rubber band from the ice house, the dollar store, whatever, a little thin rubber band, and you were to pull it 2 inches, after that it would break. But all of a sudden you get this Mondo rubber band, huge, thick. Well, it can take a lot more. A head bolt is a rubber band. A main bolt is a rubber band. So if you try to put the ARP torque on a regular bolt, you don't have that thick rubber band. You have the little rubber band. You're going to overstretch it, and you're going to break that bolt. The same thing. If you try to use the torque for this little rubber band on an ARP rubber band, you're not going to stretch it at all. And the reason I say it's a rubber band is we're preloading tension on that head gasket. So it needs to be there, and it's more than it needs because an engine is a living thing. It's not living, I know, but it's expanding, it's contracting. Metal as it heats expands. Metal as it cools shrinks. Aluminum expands at almost twice the rate of cast iron. So the engine is doing this all the time. As hot as it gets, when it's cold in the morning, when it gets hot. So think about the head bolt being like a rubber band. We put load on it, tension, we stretch the bolt. So as stuff stretches in the engine, it still has the right loading tension on the head gasket. So that's the main reason, is you can't look up somebody's bolt and use somebody else's torque. You can't use somebody's torque on somebody else's bolt. Don't do that, because the torque is for the specific bolt that they used. If you change the bolt, why are you going to go back at GM's torque specs, but you put somebody else's bolt on it? That torque spec was for their 8-grade bolt, their 5-grade bolt. They know the tensile strength. That's why engines have different torque settings. It's the material, the amount that it takes to load that. They put it in a lab, they stretch it, they know how much it needs to stretch. Anything more than that, like a rubber band, is going to break. So you got to put it in its stretch point. So that's the thing. Also, I'm going and going. There is a specific lube you got to use. Don't use somebody else's bolts, somebody else's torque, and whatever lube you want. Well, they said put a lube. I put 30-weight motor oil on it. ARP provides you with a Moly lube. The Moly lube that they had back in the day, and it may not even be Moly what they have now, it's a different lube than they have now. So they've changed this lube. You need to use the lube that they provide in the box. Why? That's the lube that they used when they torqued this in their lab on a machine to find out the stretch. Okay, so that's the lube. What you want the lube to do is to not let the bolt stick. When you go to torque it, you want it to slide and not have friction. One of the other things that throws the torque off when torquing a bolt is the friction. So if you put on a washer and a nut on a stud or a bolt and you don't lube it right, stop it, people. Think about when you don't lube it right, what's going to happen? It's going to stick on you. Well, if you're torquing it to 85 pounds, your torque wrench, the light went off, the thing clicked, or whatever torque wrench you have said 85 pounds. That is not giving you an indication of how the bolt is stretching. That just meant you had so much friction underneath the bolt that it clicked your torque wrench. But the bolt could still be loose. If you didn't put any lube on it, it's an aluminum head, it's going to stick that bolt in. Oh, I got 85 pounds. I wonder why I blew a head gasket. Well, no, you didn't stretch the bolt correctly. So the lube that ARP uses is to allow it to slide and not give you a false reading. The reason there's torque to yield bolts is because of this exactly. If you want to hear about torque to yield bolts, if I've said too much about bolts, I'm going to take a moment break and have Shop Mom tell me what else is going on in the room.
What else is going on in the room? It's actually fairly quiet, although part of the issue is that there's not a lot of conversation.
Somebody got in an accident, 2 a.m. afternoon, 2 a.m.
That was venom.
That was venom.
Yeah.
I would tell the kids, nothing good ever happens past midnight. And then whenever something would happen to anybody, I always made it a point to go, what time did it? He's like, and then they repeat it back to me. Nothing good happens after midnight. And it's true. You've been there, done it. I've been there, done it many times. All right. Came at the lube. Oh, came in at the lube on the bolts. We're talking about bolt stretch. And if it's something I need to go over again, unless somebody else says, no, stop having to talk about bolts. We're talking about bolt stretch and why different manufacturers have a different torque on a cylinder head, on a main cap. I got different examples, so I'm going to use a different example. So some of y'all that heard this on the cylinder head, I didn't use this example on the mains. Okay, Chrysler Hemi, early model Hemi, a 331 Hemi, let's just say, and then you have a 426 Hemi. ARP makes a set of studs for the mains. Well, they fit all these engines. The main stud torque is 110 pounds. In the sheet of paper with the bolts that you get, it's giving you the torque. It's giving you what you want to torque this to, right? Well, it's 110 pounds torque to stretch that bolt. I was talking earlier, a bolt is like a rubber band. So they want 110 pounds. That's going to put the stretch in the bolt so that it can hold the clamping force to keep a main cap down. In all sheets of paper that come with ARPs, if y'all ever opened an ARP set, what does it say? When you're doing a connecting rod bolts, when you're doing main cap bolts, when you're doing anything, a rod bolt, torque it and recheck the bore because it can change. I will tell you on some engines, we take the ARPs off and we take a factory bolt off, put an ARP bolt on. It didn't change the housing bore, but a few tenths, if that at all. But that's the engine with a robust main cap. What I was having an issue with was this 331 Hemi, 85 pounds of what the factory bolt torques to. Got my housing bore, checking, man, this is nice. I go to 90 pounds, I'm a little bit different. I like to write stuff down and I like to just see what's happening while I'm doing it. So I kept on adding 5 pounds while checking the housing bore. I got up to 90 pounds. The housing bore still was pretty darn good. 95 pounds, a couple of tenths oval already. It started to stretch out and get fatter on the sides and tighter up here. I go all the way and it starts really getting oval. By the time I hit the 110 pounds, the mains are gone. I mean, they're not broken. It didn't do anything else, but the housing bore from all the mains were just not even close to where I was before. And I had these not only I had already blueprinted them with the factory bolts, and the customer wanted to go and change them out to ARPs. The customer's always right, but I had already blueprinted it with factory bolts. Jim Lussey, my buddy Jim, was here, and it was me and him at the back, and we just kept on, and I was writing stuff down. So I had already had it perfect, and all of a sudden, it's off. I start backing off and working my way back. Sure enough, we call it a day. It's the evening. It's just me and Jim at the back, and it's after work. And the next day, I call ARP up, and I want to know if they have another bolt for this. It says on there it fits 331 Hemi. Nope, we don't make any other bolts. I said, well, this is what's happening. That's why you got to line bore the mains whenever you put an ARP bolt. The problem is with so much distortion to line bore these because of the bolt, and the Hemi 331 is a cast cap. So it's just not I just did not like 110 pounds on a stock cast cap. It's not a billet cap. It's just really, really distorted. So it took quite a few phone calls with ARP, working my way up, and I don't want to talk to a salesman. I need to talk to an engineer. I need to talk to somebody that knows bolts. There is people at ARP that know bolts, and they will put you on with an engineer that knows bolts way more than I know, but I know enough to know this ain't right. Because they were telling me, well, you said it was fine to 95 pounds. Leave it at 95. And I'm like, is 95 pounds putting the right stretch on my rubber band? Because here's the deal. If you don't stretch that bolt when you torque it down, that's what holds it there. So once it heats up and starts stretching, the bolt's gonna come loose. And I just said, well, yeah, I'm the one that told you that at 95, I saw it, 85, 90, 95, and actually 90 was perfect. By 95, it was a few tenths. And so I'm like, great, that's why I'm calling you. You tell me what's the minimum torque I can put on this bolt and still have it be like an elastic, still have it stretch the bolt and my main cap not come loose. Well, it took a couple, well, let me transfer you to somebody, and I just kept on the same thing. Yeah, I don't guess. If you tell me it'll work, it'll work. I want your name. I want to write it down. If you don't know, then tell me you don't know. But then I'm going to send these bolts back. I'm going to go back to the regular bolts. It did not need ARP main studs for this motor. It didn't need it. A lot of the stuff, the couple that I've been helping is find your budget. That's another subject. But find your budget and put your money the right way. Don't overdo your budget don't use up your budget by buying stuff you don't really need. And then don't get me wrong, I love ARP bolts, but I'm just saying, if you only have $50 and you're going to spend it all on this, and you didn't do, oil and a filter, but you got the world's best bolt. I love that bolt, but I'd rather you have an oil and a filter. Anyway, I have taken this bolt thing way too far. I think I don't know. I've ripped all the bolts out. Yeah, one of the advice that I give, and I give it this before on a live stream, I give it this before on an actual video. If you never used a torque wrench before, throw the torque wrench away. And they laugh at me. What do you mean? That's why if they don't know how to torque something, a torque wrench, because they don't know how to torque, I get it. Use a torque wrench for your head bolts, your main bolts. I mean, I get it. They wanted to use the torque wrench and the specs that the ARP gives them for the timing cover bolts. And I'm like, that timing cover bolt is the ARP timing cover bolt set. It's a master kit. That's way overkill. It's a beautiful bolt. Don't get me wrong. I love using the full ARP set, and that's majority of what we do when we're doing a custom motor. I go all ARP because it just looks beautiful. They're fine bolts. But I said, that thin timing cover ain't going to take, and they thought it was 110 pounds. And I go, it may be 110 inches, but not 110 pounds, but forget that. Forget that. So I give the advice that I give to people that have never been around for, go to the junkyard, the salvage yard. You may have an old engine in your backyard. Your neighbor may have one. If you don't like your neighbor, you go into his car, he don't see you. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding.
You're not going to give people that advice.
But break some bolts. I told him, I said, get you a set of the 3/8 ratchet by the perfect size for the feel, and some 3/8 sockets, and the 3/8 ratchet with the regular sockets, and start going and breaking off oil pan bolts. The bolt's going to tell you when it's about to give it up. It's screaming at you. You just got to know how to listen. You got to be a bolt whisperer. You got to know when it's telling you, I'm giving it up. The way you know it's giving it up, it's productive and nice, and all of a sudden it gets soft on you. That's when it was yelling at you, telling you, I'm about to give it up. I'm going to break. You keep it up, and then snap. Before that happens, it gave you plenty of signs that was going to happen. The first sign was your gasket was squeezing out and squeezing out. And that's like I told him. I said, you don't need a torque wrench for your timing cover. You don't need a torque wrench for your oil pan. You don't need a torque wrench for your valve covers. I said, throw the torque wrench away even for your intake manifold. I mean, I'm serious. You know what I'm going to tell you about the intake manifold? Try to do a small block Chevy when the bolts go like this, and you can't put a torque wrench on it if you wanted to. So put a crow's foot and a cow's foot and a whatever's foot, and try to put a torque, because you want to please the thing you read in the book that says to torque an intake manifold. We've been doing it a long time, and we know snug is good enough. So, all right. I think I probably lost a lot of people on my talking.
I don't know that you lost anybody, but that was a really good conversation.
Let's talk about max liquid in the intake manifold using blow-through carbs and meth. Now, I don't know exactly, but you're onto something. I did a video, and after I did this video, Lake Speed, I think, did the same subject at not Engine Masters, but PRI. And the title of this video that I did was, "Did your tuner blow up your engine?" And it's not just joking, and it's not just. Back we used to think that the tuner blew up my engine because it gave it too much timing and it detonated, But nowadays, especially with E85 and meth, we're dumping a lot of liquid. So you can wash the cylinders, all the oil off the cylinders, you're not gonna. It ain't gonna last. Your rings aren't going to have oil. It needs oil to make a seal. So without that oil, then the rings are going to wear out super fast. The oil is going to be oil saturated. You can smell it. The oil level will go up. And you think, oh, it takes a lot. No, no. Many times, Holly's having a bad problem with their first stage fuel injection. They had issues with it. I'm not picking on Holly or anything else. They fixed it. You could send your sniper to them, and they will redo it. Now they have the sniper 2 now. Why do they have a sniper 2? Sniper. What was wrong with sniper 1? It looks just like it. Anyway, and the problem was those they had I've heard there's a relay issue, a circuit issue, and it just dumped fuel. Every time you turn the key on, it gives it a couple of pulses like a choke to give you fuel enrichment. And this thing was just and it was just flooding the engines till they hydraulicked. If they didn't hydraulic, they put so much fuel into the oil pan, it washed all the fuel off the cylinders. It's bad. So yes, a tune. So when you're talking about the max liquid saturation, and the E85 is dumping even more. We're just pumping so much liquid through a motor. So you got to be really, really careful. Did you know? And I don't know if I've known anybody that asked this question. And I know a lot of shops. I do a lot of different things for a lot of shops. But did your shop ask you when you brought it in and said, I want to get my block bored and honed, did they ask you what fuel you're running? Well, and if not, they are assuming that you're running a factory stock engine. Did you tell them, oh, I'll put a blower on it, I'm going to run E85, I'm running meth, I'm spraying it, I'm doing everything. No, I don't. You go to a doctor and not tell him what hurts? Hey, no, well, doc, will you figure it out? I'm not going to tell you that I run around barefooted through fire, but I mean, my feet hurt, but I'm not going to tell you what I do. So no, you want to tell. So I did videos on this, and some of the videos I do are very controversial because I'm looking out for the DIY guy. I'm just telling you like it is, and manufacturers may not on some things. I'm not saying everybody, and this is in general, but I ruffle a lot of feathers just because why do you have to say these things? They don't know. Why do you have to say them? A good shop should have asked you what your intent is. But I'm like yin and yang. Okay, but a good shop is got 18 employees, and they got to get the work out. They don't have time to beg you for information. They're going to write the ticket. It's going to the back. They're going to call you when it's done. They're going to bore and hone it. Why do they, if you didn't mention anything, and this is also, I'm also a crank grinder, and when we grind stuff, we grind what's called in a split. If you're a crank grinder, you would know what that means. But if you don't tell me anything about your engine and a crank comes in to get cut, we're going to grind it on the split. In a book, you open up your manual, open up all your specs, they always give you 2 numbers. If you look up any of the technical data on machining an engine, there's always 2 numbers. That's because the book that you're looking at, you're reading whatever, it's a production book, and if it's within this number and this number, it theoretically should work. That's what GM used as their high and their low. I would grind in the split, not on the big side to tighten up oil clearance, not on the low side to give you more oil clearance. I'm going to grind it on the split. If you didn't tell me, if I got it to ticket, I'm going to grind the crankshaft. There's no specifics, anything else. We're going to grind on the split. And then later on, if someone comes back and, oh my God, I want to looser oil clearance. Why my oil clearances, I'm running a race motor or whatever. I want looser clearances. Well, but you didn't, So me is I'm a little bit different. I can never get off the counter and I can never get off of anything because I can never stop talking because I just know. It's like I don't read minds and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But what I do know is the route you're going in is you're going down a road with the map in your pocket and your eyes closed. You don't, so I can tell you, you're going to get lost. I'm not Houdini. I don't know what's happening, but your actions are showing that, guess what? There ain't no good going to come of this. Or it's just going to be an average engine. It's just not going to be right. Now, what I suggest to everybody on grinding the crank, you need to tell me what your housing board, in other words, put your bearing in your rod, mic it, how much oil clearance do you want? That tells me what to cut the crank at. Put your mains in your block, torque them. How much oil clearance do you want? That tells me how much you cut the crank. That's blueprinting. But that's a different world. Not everybody lives in a blueprint world. You talk about hills and nuts.
Oh, okay. Overbuilt Automotive has
Yes.
been had an observation just a little bit ago.
Okay.
Water injection. The meth ain't really needed now, is it? I know, keep it from freezing, but in the terms of detention prevention, the alcohol ain't needed.
And exactly, there's a lot of, you go back into the day, there is a lot of it's past theory, and there's different things that they do it. When I ran it back in the day, I built my own water injectors, and it was just plain water. And it's true. We started adding alcohol to keep it from freezing. So if it wasn't freezing, then you most definitely didn't need it. Plain water worked just fine. My first turbocharged things, that I would build a big block Chevy turbocharger, and water meth. I mean, not water meth. We didn't have water meth. Water injection, and it was a bottle that I got from a junkyard with a squirter for your windshields, and a little Hobbs pressure switch, and a little squirter motor, and it was connected to the throttle. Later on, as it started getting a little more advanced, we put a vacuum switch. But for the most part, it was a slider on the throttle. When it got to that point, it sprayed. It was generally always under boost. I'll tell you how my Gale Banks twin turbo is water injected. And he uses a stainless tank, and there's a line that comes from the manifold, and it's full. And as it goes into boost, there is a solenoid, but the boost pressure pressurizes the tank. So there's no electric pump like the snow water injection. And people that you know what I'm talking about. Gale Banks has the best water injection setup. Like Gale says, the snow one just dumps a lot of fuel. Gale Banks is pulse width modulated. You can actually control, and it's true. When it goes into water injection, it's generally not enough, perfect, and then too much. So that's the problem. Okay, now fast forward to kind of your question. We started doing the meth injection because it was kind of like, meth extracts so much more heat. And we started using meth as an additive, a fuel additive for going under boost. So, and then now, I don't want to say a lot of the kids, everybody now does water meth injection. But anytime you do alcohol, the numbers aren't 2 to 1, but without doing any kind of math or anything else, it's almost 2 to 1. So if you're going to run a gallon of gas going down the track, you're going to run 2 gallons of alcohol going down the track. There's not a lot of energy in it, but it absorbs energy really well. So that's why the alcohol and meth work really, really well as an intercooler, because besides just doing the water injection, the alcohol just extracts so much more heat. But not necessary if you live in a hot place. So, and be careful with how much. We're running a lot of liquid in our engines these days. And kind of back to if you didn't tell somebody that you're running a lot of even if you didn't tell anybody that you're not running E85, well, it runs a lot more fuel through the cylinder. It needs to be a rougher hone. You cannot use the same hone for a naturally aspirated, regular fuel motor, and then something that's running, alcohol, water, meth, ethanol. They run a lot more fuel. If you run the same cylinder finish, it's going to smoke, and you're going to go through rings prematurely. So a motor that runs with this much more fuel, especially with meth water, it's almost like back in the day, the old timers here would know. I don't know if there's any old timers besides me. Like when we honed for chrome rings, it was rough. The finish on the cylinders were rough because the rings were chrome and they're really hard. So you needed a rough finish. They're almost getting, when I look at stuff nowadays that's, stuff for water, meth, and all this methanol injection, it's almost as rough or is as rough as chrome rings. It is rough, but oil gets on the cylinders and it's rough because that's holding the oil. So it's really, it's a different cylinder ring finish or cylinder bore finish is just really changed, and really times have caught up to it. For the longest time, it was bored, we wanted it round, and then we want to hone to make the ring seal, and that was it. Everything else advanced, and cylinder finish never advanced. finally this past year, I've been doing videos with Lake Speed. Look at all the videos online now of all of the honing videos now. Now honing, they have they're checking for roughness and finish and digitizing, and cylinder finish has now come full circle to where it's now as advanced as everything else. Now we need to jump over to something else that's not advanced on an engine, but the oiling system. But anyway, what anything else? Overbuilt water injection, but it's really needed now.
Peter Blair joined us, and David Johnson is here. He said his wife is having a good day. We know that's really
Peter?
important because she's had a rough time with cancer, and David's been doing an admirable job of trying to keep up with everything. And Peter Blair, of course, is our California buddy who.
My partner in crime in eBay commercial.
Yes,
Our
there you go.
Let's Ride. Our yes. What David, you're doing, like I said, taking care of. Like I say, it's for better or worse, and you're a good man. That's we love that. We love family. You know that. What's I don't know.
But if
What,
nobody else has anything
See.
else going on, we can wrap it up because I know a lot of y'all are up north and you got it way worse than we do. But I got plants who are not going to survive a freeze if I don't get them in the house.
well, I want to finish the rest of my beer with Peter. Peter, cheers. He says it's beer 30. Well, awesome. We really want to get back up there. Is it up there, California?
No, it's out west. They're not. Although they are further north than we are.
And then when you come visit your son, we need to get together. All right, it's been a tough. What was I going to give that? Awesome. I'm way behind on my reading.
Well,
A simple 555 chip. Word. Yes. So I like overbuilt automotive. So you like to DIY electronic stuff? I take it. An Arduino board is just amazing. What you can do with these little circuit boards. Back in the day, we had Radio Shack little test kits that you would make stuff. Now what you know, it's a little bit, it's an Arduino, whatever you know how you pronounce it, but you can make anything with that. I made a cam doctor to spin a cam, and I don't write code, but I can most definitely hack code. I just go online, and there's a lot of DIY code writers that are doing everything. That's the same little board that's in my 3D printer. So I had one of the first rip wrap 3D printers. You really had to go and it wasn't like now where you just download an app and send a picture to it. You really had to you know, to know what you were doing. So I can just go and take code and kind of like, you know, copy and paste this, copy and paste that, and make something happen. So if I find a code that something is turning and there, you know, I'll take that line of code because, hey, that's what I want to happen. So anyway, I'm a hacker on coding, but
and apparently it's beer 30 for a lot of people.
all right, I'm just gonna go and finish this beer in that case. What is? I can't wait to try my 85 mix in the 5. All right, making 20 psi boost at 336 horsepower. That's pretty good on only 93 octane. So that's Dave Johnson's got it. And this is your new one. Isn't this a new one you bought?
Yeah, he bought that one last year.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yes. And then, and yes, we're gonna get a major cold front. So Faye came by last week. She was this past week. She was at All Girls. So 3 weeks ago, she came by and she helped me winterize the smoky hot vapor car. In fact, I have all that video. We had so much fun. Just turned the video on and just let it go, and shot a day's worth of video. Winterizing the fuel system. It was a neat thing because this thing is ready to go. We have the engine in. We took it on a maiden voyage, and this is the hot vapor Plymouth. And then pulled it in my shop, covered it, and I want to winterize it. And one of the first things we go do is even on the video. So and I like to just leave stuff, but we crank. We're gonna do the fuel system, and cranking it didn't fire off. It's like. You know, and I try to keep the battery charged up, brand new battery, and but I run a charger from the Mercedes over to the Plymouth, and boy, so instantly the first thing is bring out the voltmeter, and oh, and my everything was running. This thing is, I mean, I wired it the way the Smokey had it by a picture. We've already driven the car. So anyway, long story short, go on and check. I said, before we start undoing tape, and you know, that's the tape that Smokey had around that wire. Let's not pull that one up. And let's see what we have when I crank. So the ignition cranking dropped down to under 11 volts, and it was right at almost 11. It just didn't fire off. So it crank didn't fire off, and brand new battery. I mean, it still cranked over kind of, you know, real fast. But when we checked it with the voltmeter, dropped down, put a battery charger on it, or Faye brought a little Schumacher little pack, and as soon as we did it, we cranked. And first we did it with the ignition off, and our voltage was back up. Plugged it in and just fired right off. So that's ready. But I haven't winterized the cooling system. It has water wetter, or what you use at a racetrack, so that you don't spill antifreeze on the track. And Tony, which is Smokey's friend, real good friend, and Ralph Johnson, if you know Ralph Johnson, just passed away. Ralph and Tony had long discussions of never put antifreeze in a hot vapor car. So we even did this where I have, like I said, when I had it on a run stand for years running, I had antifreeze in it. When I got the engine, a lot of the coolant tubes were rotted. They had pinholes. This thing would leak, but it's from Daytona Beach, Florida. So we rolled it back from the showroom here to the back, and then me and Faye started to get it ready to go in the car. We want to put a new timing belt on it. We want to put, you know, get the carburetor, just go and take it apart and just clean it. It had a broken piece that was broken from the time we got it. So getting all this stuff ready, and I started seeing a couple of spots. They weren't leaking, but I could see some corrosion. So fix them back. So that's the deal. Tony says do not run antifreeze in it. It eats away all of the aluminum components. What I have an opinion is, back then that antifreeze did, most definitely in the 80s. Now we have antifreeze made for aluminum vehicles, aluminum cars, aluminum radiators, aluminum cylinder heads. So I think we can put antifreeze in it. But Tony's really adamant that don't. Ralph Johnson told him. Of course, like I said, this is back in the day. So right now I still have the water wetter in it. And the water wetter, the one we have is from VP brand. And it's supposed to be good for higher degrees below zero or whatever. It's supposed to be really good for freezing. But I may go out into the garage. That's the shop at home. I may go out there and just open it and dump it. I need to also put those videos. If you notice, the last month I haven't done anything on videos. We've been more on family and just kind of, you know, got to just focus.
Trying to get over 2023.
Trying to get over, yes.
Those of you guys who have been with us know that 2023 was really a very challenging year, and glad it's gone.
Yes, it was tough. So I haven't really did the live streams about all that. You know, I may drop a short once every couple of weeks. I need to get back into it, but it's just a different. It's almost like, you know, just got to relax. Hey
Okay,
Ed.
well, while you're relaxing, Craig White has a question.
Yes.
He says, quick question. It can wait till next time if you want. Emissions on my flathead. HC, what am I reading? ppm quite high on each bank. Any suggestions on how to lower them? Remember, Craig White is in.
Yes, I'm looking for his message just to see. Is it there? Oh, there it is. Question. You're going to have a ton of hydrocarbon. It's how do you have to pass emissions tests in there in the UK?
I'm gonna bet so.
Well, think of the valve guides on a flathead. I even put a seal on the exhaust guide, even though you don't need to. The factory one didn't even have a groove on it. But I'll put it. I know they'll say years down the road, the heat from there will get that thing to stick. Have you ever pulled valve guides out of a flathead? You can't get the guides out anyway. They're stuck in there from years of running and corroded. So that's never. I've never had an issue. I guess my stuff lives longer, but maybe I'm not thinking of the guy 100 years from now. But I've taken apart a lot of flatheads, and the guys don't just come on out. You know, especially the exhaust, the carbon. And I had people say to me, once you get enough carbon, they're going to seal up, so you don't need to put the O-ring on it. So I don't know, Craig, are you running O-ring seals on your? Is he answering? Is he running seals?
He said,
Oh, this is for the burn gun carrier. So is it not a flathead or older vehicles weren't? They don't have a crankcase ventilation, so there's a lots of oils in the combustion process. It just weren't sealed that way. A lot of old cars only have valve stem seals. They wanted to lubricate the guides, but that all stopped a long time ago because you can't lubricate a valve guide and have oil in your combustion chamber. Oil changes your octane rating. Oil changes if you're going to do a emissions test. Yeah, you know. So yes, emissions tests are part of the inspections in the UK. Well, seals on both the intake and exhaust. They're just so. Like I said, there's no crankcase ventilation. I like to put a crankcase ventilation on the majority of older vehicles, even if they don't have one and it's going to be used daily or somewhat daily parade or whatever. I'll put a crankcase ventilation system on them, unless it's a restoration, like a museum restoration or something, because they had a downdraft tube, and that's what we're not redesigning the animal. We're restoring it back to what it was. It'll get driven very little, but if it's going to be driven a little more off, and I can hide them. A lot of times we can hide the crankcase ventilation, and you won't even see it. If anything, you won't notice it. I've done them where it looks like another vacuum hose or tube, or so seals on both the intake, so both the intake and exhaust have seals on your flathead, but the other vehicle is not a flathead, is it, or is it the burn gun carrier? Is that I don't. He has more than one thing. He does a lot of stuff, and I follow him, so I don't know which one he's talking about.
I certainly couldn't tell you.
But that's going to be the older vehicles have a lot more oils in the combustion chamber as they burn the rings. It's just everything. So to not get hydrocarbons in the exhaust, there's just a lot of it. How could if you wanted to pass inspection, put an air pump on it, pumps some fresh air in the pipe, and you could most definitely get it to pass emissions. And it wouldn't be that hard to do something like that without being ugly. I bet you could. I don't know if anybody's ever put an air pump on a flathead, but you could pump fresh air into the exhaust, like what they do on everything that tries to pass emissions. The reason they have an air pump is they're pumping a bunch of air in there so that it can try to give it more oxygen, so they can burn in the pipe and the catalytic converter. I mean, it's just they're just playing. The engines aren't necessarily more efficient, just the crap that they put on them. Sorry, the stuff that they put on them downstream. Yes, the pipe is cleaner, but you didn't make the engine any cleaner. But modern engines have seals everywhere. When we don't, intake valves are sealed, exhaust valves are sealed. Everything is sealed up on a modern engine.
Lawnmower says that Wiki says the carrier had a Ford V8 side valve.
A side valve. I like lawnmower. We don't need no stinking badges. It's funny too. I like to play your silly game. So. Side valve. Oh man, I don't. Only time we see side valves is generally because you chunk the rod, and there's maybe a longer period of setting is required. There's so you following the build. Okay. Well, that's what I mean. You're going to finding something that older engines are going to be tough. Think of the way a carburetor works, the way as opposed to a fuel injection. Just the choke. just starting it to choke, for an engine to run, it needs to be a rich mixture. And it's going to fail right there. So you want to make sure it's nice and hot up there. About, if anything, what was Dave telling me? We want to get the exhaust temperature up to 1900 degrees as fast as possible. So you want to get the exhaust temperature up as hot and as fast as possible if you want to pass emissions testing. If you want to clean your emission with all of the hydrocarbons and all of the NOx and but with exhaust temperature comes NOx. Now we're starting to see that maybe over a certain threshold, maybe that NOx starts to drop back down. So all right, and what is else? Do we see another one? The link to the side valve here on the Ford. I need to go. Now I'm going to have to go look up what a side valve is. Maybe when we come back, we'll be talking about side valves. Danny, no, it's carp. Carp? Is it David John? What does it say about carp? No?
Not crap, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'll take the. Oh, yeah. I wrote that. And that's another.
So Lawnmower says, wiki link to the side valve takes you to the Ford flathead page.
Okay, it's not a side valve. It's a valve. It's in the block. It's like a Briggs and Stratton.
Well, okay. I'm going to suggest that we go move plants because it's going to get cold.
We're gonna move plants
because we were late.
Because it's getting cold here. It's gonna. It's okay. I can't throw carb. I can't throw with it on either. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and
say peace
I
and
guess
assembly degrees.
Peace and assembly degrees. We're gonna go move plants. It's gonna get really, really cold right now. If you could see, turn the camera on. It's the most beautiful sunny day. It's probably 60 degrees or something outside. You wouldn't even think it's even gonna get cold. And I guess for us here in Texas, we don't handle cold very well or whatever. It does get cold, but not like y'all. So I don't want to seem like a wuss. Like, well, they think that's cold. Terry's probably laughing. Yes. So
I think we're supposed to get down to 14, which no matter where you are, 14 is cold.
14 is close. I'm gonna go ahead and hold on.
And you finished your beer.
I did. I managed.
That's so good.
Okay, hold on. I'm writing it.
¿Qué estás haciendo?
I'm trying to write with one hand, but I got it. There you go. All right.
You actually said it, huh? You got peace and assembly grease.
I got peace and assembly grease. I got it. What is Lawnmower saying? Be sure to get your emergency French toast supplied. And not okay. And
emergency French toast.
Yes, and man, we're just about done. I'm just about done with the nuts and. Thanks.
That's from Scott.
I know.
Scott. Scott.
I think I gained like. I want to now. Whatever's done this weekend, the grandkids are coming home and they get to take whatever because this has been something. But Scott always takes care of it during Christmas.
Yes, he does.
It's
And JJ's wife went.
Oh, and JJ's wife. Everybody,
Lord.
we love you. We love y'all. So, peace and assembly grease, everybody. Stay safe. Tell your loved ones you love them. Tell strangers you love them and freak them out. All right, we'll see. What is it? Bread, eggs. Oh yeah, we're gonna go get all the essentials. It's kind of nice. I like hunkering down. I don't care if I got a generator ready. I don't care if the power goes all out. We get under one blanket and
chicken and dumplings.
And chicken and dumplings. All right. So peace and assembly grease, everybody. We'll see you when we're gonna see them again.
In 2 weeks, the 29th. And we'll
29th.
try to be on time.
We will be on time. We will try to be on time.
We'll try to be on time because it's you. There's no way to tell whether you'll be on time.
There's no way to tell if I'm going to be on there. All right. Peace and assembly grease, everybody. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
And be kind.
And be kind to everybody. Be kind at the end right there.